Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Movie Goodness, where we examine life through cinema here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and let's go back a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Let's talk about Star Wars today, and to put it more accurately, a story that broke, allegedly, that Kathleen Kennedy, the president of Lucasfilms, will be stepping down at the end of 2025, which I'm pretty sure a lot of Star Wars fans are happy about. They are cheering in the streets. They are throwing parades and climbing poles and all this other stuff, flipping cars. They are super excited by this news. Me personally, I'm of two minds of the situation. I understand everybody's excitement, and but at the same time, you gotta kind of, you know, see the forest beyond the trees here. You know what I'm saying? But we're gonna get into all that. But today we are talking about Kathleen Kennedy in this report that dropped on Tuesday, February the 25th, when it was reported that Kathleen Kennedy will be stepping down from Lucasfilms at the end of the year. And it's more than just Star Wars, because there's Indiana Jones wrapped up in that too. There's other properties uh connected to Lucasfilms that she was in charge of or is in charge of. Once again, this is reported. They came out as a trade headline, and nothing official from Disney or Lucasfilms to state the fact, or Kathleen Kennedy herself. So this is all alleged, but at the same time, just like they didn't refute this, they also didn't deny this either. And so it's at least at the time of this recording. So I don't know. I'm just going to assume that the report was correct. But we're going to talk about the report, and we're going to go over Kathleen Kennedy's tenure as the president of Lucasfilms and why there's so much discord, since Disney bought Lucasfilms from George Lucas and went into this new era of Star Wars, where we got all of these films and TV shows. And I would say it was a 50-50 split, but it really wasn't. It was more of a 20% success rate when it came to Star Wars after Disney purchased this property. But Kathleen Kennedy, as much as she's been the victim of vitriol, she also needs to be celebrated. This is a woman in a time when a woman uh wasn't the head of a division, wasn't the head of a studio or a production company like this, especially something this big. There are women in those positions, of course, of power, of leading, and kudos to them. But this is Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? This is one of the biggest franchises in film history, and she was the grand poobah of it all. And so she needs to be celebrated for what she did, even though everything she did was not universally loved. So let's go over the history of Kathleen Kennedy. Well, not the entire history. Kathleen Kennedy is not just Star Wars. Let's put that out there. The, her name has been elevated because she was the head of this production studio, this actual studio, if you will, in partnership with Disney. But she's been in the business for years. She started off working with the great Steven Spielberg. She produced a lot of Steven Spielberg's films back in the late 80s or 90s and so on. Jurassic Park, those type of films. She's been a part of the pop culture zeitgeist for a very long time. And so that's why I kind of push back on all of the Kathleen Kennedy hate, because she has given us some really, or helped give us some really good films that has stuck with us throughout our childhood, throughout our uh, you know, growing up, becoming adults, and even till now. So be cool when it comes to the Kathleen Kennedy hate. Let's bag up a little bit. Let's slow it down and look at everything in its totality. But Kathleen Kennedy, according to a report, a source with knowledge of Kennedy's plans says she intends to retire once her current contracts end, which is at the end of 2025. And another anonymous source came forward and rebuked those claims, saying it was purely speculation. Now, there's no name to go with this anonymous source. Nobody knows who it is, but nobody amen that that rebuttal either. Now, Kathleen Kennedy, she joined Lucasfilms in 2012. She was co-chairing the company alongside, of course, George Lucas himself, and became president of Lucasfilms when Disney acquired the company for a whopping $4 billion shortly thereafter. Her tenure has been, to put it kindly, a mixed success. Kennedy's accomplishments include the excellent Disney Plus live action Star Wars show, The Mandalorian, as well as Andor. And we're about to get Andor season 2 in a couple of months on Disney Plus. And some big box office wins as well. But the bigger picture has been one of disarray. The last two Star Wars Disney Plus series were uh, they were failures, and I ain't gonna say they both were failures for the same reason. The Acolyte was a failure, viewership wise and content wise. I think nobody liked the Acolyte. I was I I tried to like it. I tried to convince myself to like it, and I couldn't. It was just that bad. The latest Disney Plus show, Skeleton Crew, I actually enjoyed. I had a good time with that show, but it had the worst viewership numbers of the entire franchise. Nobody watched it. Nobody cared. And I think a lot of that is because people were burnt out on this the Star Wars content up to this point. And I get it, because I remember asking my daughters to watch it with me, because we watched The Mandalorian together. We watched a lot of the shows together, even The Acolyte. But The Acolyte was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, at least with my oldest daughter. She was like, I'm done. I'm done. You know, when Skeleton Crew came back around, asked her if she wanted to watch it. She was like, no. No. My youngest daughter watched it with me, and she enjoyed it. We both enjoyed it, but a lot of people didn't watch it. Now, while other Star Wars Disney Plus offerings, they were a little bit more successful. It's hard to look at Obi-Wan or the Book of Boba Fett as anything but lackluster television, but they failed to capture the magic and the imagination that we all know and love from the Star Wars franchise. But they did, numbers wise, it did good. Now, Obi-Wan, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good either. The Book of Boba Fett, it was not good. The numbers were high because of the anticipation factor. Everybody for years have wanted to see Boba Fett in some form, whether it was his own movie or a TV show. We finally get the TV show, and it fell flat, unfortunately for me. Now, I'm pretty sure there are some fans of that show, but it wasn't universal either way. So that was kind of a a red flag, a strike against her there. Meanwhile, Disney has struggled to find lasting success on the big screen, and what ought to be a slam dunk for Disney, rivaling the MCU, which is also a part of the Disney umbrella, under the umbrella of Disney. And no, it's not. They should be competitive, but not in a competitive way, trying to knock each other off this porch. But they should be money makers for Disney, but it's not. Just the MCU is standing tall over Star Wars, which is crazy to say. While the sequel trilogy saw big box office numbers, and I'm talking about The Force Awakens, which made over $1 billion global, actually two, if I'm not mistaken, $2 billion globally, but it also managed to divide the fan base. The fact that the I don't know, incoherent story and direction of the other two films, it soured the whole thing. Not having a story in place for this trilogy. They just announced a trilogy and went forward with it. I don't think they had a plan. Obviously, they didn't have a plan. Watching those three movies, The Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and then The Rise of Skywalker. It just got worse and worse and worse. I liked Force Awakens, but it's more of a carbon copy of A New Hope. Just with new stars added into it. New actors, new characters added into it. But I did enjoy it. The Last Jedi, I'm more confused by that movie. I'm still confused to this day about that movie. And The Rise of Skywalker, my God, I just did not. I've said it many times on this channel, on this show. I do not, and I repeat, do not have a desire to watch that movie again. I watched it one time in the theater opening night when it came out, and I have yet to watch one scene of that movie since. It was that bad to me. It's one of the worst movies I ever seen. But all three films made money. All three films were successful when it comes to the dollar amount. It ripped apart the fan base, but the fan base still went to go see it. On the other hand, there were films they didn't go see. Solo, a Star Wars story, that prequel to the Han Solo story. Nobody asked for. Nobody asked for, and especially without Harrison Ford. Now we know that Harrison Ford could not play Han Solo in the prequel. Harrison Ford is 200 years old. There's no way he can go back and play a young Han Solo. But that's no knock on Aaron Eggeright, I think his name is. It wasn't his fault. That movie just didn't work. It did not work. And audiences did not go see it. And in drones, it was a box office failure. Not to mention the turmoil behind the scenes. Initially, Lord and Miller, who are known for directing the 21 Jump Street films, they made Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. They made those films and multiple other projects. Cloudy with a Chance with Meatballs. Those films. They were fired. They were the original directors of that film. They were fired midway, or according to some reports, almost to the completion of the film. They were fired and replaced by Ron Howard. And Ron Howard chose to pretty much do everything over, reshoot the film. And it was just a hodgepodge of a mess. It was a Frankenstein monster of a movie. So that movie never had a chance. Another box office failure from Lucasfilms, not Star Wars related, but still a popular film, a pop culture phenomenon, and that's Indiana Jones, with a couple of years ago with Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, a film that I actually enjoyed. Was it in the pantheon of Indiana Jones movies? No, 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 but it was definitely better than Crystal Skull. But both of those films, with Solo and Dial of Destiny, they were box office failures for Lucasfilm. Solo was the first Star Wars film to actually lose money. It's been over 5 years since the release of Rise of Skywalker, and we have yet to see another Star Wars film hit the movie theater. It's been since Rise of Skywalker, and I didn't realize that until I was preparing for this show. I'm like, no, that can't be right. And then when I went back and really thought about it and looked it up, like, wait, we haven't gotten another Star Wars film. We've been getting a lot of Disney Plus shows, Mandalorian and Ahsoka and The Acolyte and Andor and all this other stuff, but we haven't gotten another film to actually come out in the theaters. And it's it's mind boggling. It's a head scratcher. And what makes it a head scratcher is the fact that Kathleen Kennedy would get up when they do Star Wars Celebration every year, and they announce all these movies. She announced all these projects that are in development, that are getting ready to go, and they have the director, they have the cast, they have the story, and we've yet to see it. They still have things left on the table. You still have the James Mangold Star Wars film that's supposed to be set in the Old Republic. We've yet to see that. Taika Waititi had been announced to have been writing and directing a Star Wars film. Others, on the other hand, and those are still on the table. Technically, they haven't been shelved, but they have been those that were shelved. Patty Jenkins, she was announced to make a Star Wars film. That was 86th, right after Wonder Woman 84, and that's understandable. That movie was so bad, but she was already announced for Star Wars, but something happened. That film's not going to take place. Rian Johnson, who directed The Last Jedi, he was going to direct a sequel, or a not a sequel, a new trilogy about these new Jedis and all this, something that he hinted on in The Last Jedi. All that was in development. That was over. The creators of Game of Thrones, David Benioff and B.D. Wise, they were putting together a Star Wars film, but it's not going to see the light of day. And so they have all of these projects that they announced. There was another one where we're going to see Daisy Ridley return as Rey. They announced that a couple of years ago. The director came out, Daisy Ridley came out, and they were celebrating. She's back, and blah blah blah. Nothing. It's nothing happening, and so it's not really. You can't blame the fans for being upset. You presented them with something and you haven't delivered, and that's the problem. Why hasn't anything come to fruition? It's mind-boggling. And so if she does retire, Kathleen Kennedy leaves behind a mixed legacy at best. She did usher in the era of the Disney Plus shows, and that's something to hang your hat on. I mean, The Mandalorian was amazing. Now, a lot of people give a lot of credit to Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau for that show, rightfully so. But she's the head. She's the one that greenlit it. She's the one that pushed it forward. So you got to give kudos to her for that. But it's really not that much more I can give her credit for. On the good end. Skeleton Crew was great, I believe. Andor was awesome. Rogue One was good. That's another one that I didn't mention, but we're going to go through the list of all the projects she was over once she took over Lucasfilm in a little while. But she just didn't. I don't know if it was the people around her, her advisors, her assistants, her co-chairs, whoever it may be. I don't think the right people were around her to keep this ball rolling, and it eventually caught up to her. And I think a lot that is driving her to this retirement is the fact that, enough's enough, man. That crown is heavy. I got to give my neck a break. So I get it. But, we poo-poo on her, but let's not forget that the prequels, which she had nothing to do with. Well, I don't think she didn't have nothing to do with. The prequels, yeah, they were commercially successful because people have waited 2 decades for those films before anything Star Wars. So yes, they were successful. people appreciate them now. But when those movies came out, the fans were ripped apart, man. You want to talk about massive disappointment. I mean, it was disappointing, those films, but they were successful financially. And I guess at the end of the day, they run in a business. They look at the numbers, and the numbers were good, so all is well. Also, when you think of George Lucas went back and changed the original trilogy. And for a lot of people, they hate it. They hate the special edition. It doesn't bother me that much, but I understand everybody's dismay about it. You know, changing little things or adding special effects here, stuff that he wanted to do back in 1977 but couldn't. I understand all that, but this is, leave it alone. You know, you don't see Francis Ford Coppola going back and changing things in The Godfather. You know that it is what it is. That's the film that you put out. And just let it roll. I don't know why he changed all those things. It looks like a mess. It does look like a mess. But that's from me, who really wasn't that bothered by it. But like I said, I understand why true blue Star Wars fans love the original, the actual original, where Han shot first. That's where everybody loves those, and I got it. I feel you. Only one film in a galaxy far, far away it has anything like a release date coming up in theaters in the near future, and that is The Mandalorian and Grogu, uh, which is directed by Jon Favreau, but that don't come out till 2026 next year, and so there is nothing on the docket. And a lot of people are asking the question, why didn't she wait till after that film? You know, because technically she is over this production of this movie. Actually, I think they finished filming this movie a while ago, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, special effects and whatnot, they're waiting till 2026 to release it. But she's not sticking around for that release. You know, it's over. She's done. She's going to be done. Allegedly, she's going to be done at the end of the year. So this leaves us with the big question: who is her successor? Who is the one that's going to take over the reins of Star Wars when she steps down? A lot of people are saying Dave Filoni. You have another group that would say Jon Favreau as the new heads. I even heard whispers of maybe Kevin Feige leaving Marvel and coming over to Star Wars. Me personally, I have no earthly idea. Speaking of Kevin Feige, when I talk about names of directors and producers and actors who were announced to have a film, Kevin Feige years ago had a film announced that he was going to produce a Star Wars film, and the next thing you know, that got 86 as well. I wanted to mention that too. So there's a lot of movies announced that just did not even get out of the development stage. And I mean, how? It's Star Wars. But anywho's, yeah, of the names that is, I guess, the popular choice, the sexy choice, my pick would be a complete unknown. My pick would be somebody that we don't know, somebody with a clean slate that can come in and quote unquote right the ship. There's somebody that can move away. The number one priority, move away from the Skywalker saga. We're done with Skywalker. Please let it die. It's over. It's over. We had it. We loved it. We enjoyed it. It is ingrained in our hearts and in our minds. We've seen 9 movies involving, I'm saying 9 off the top of my head. I'm counting all 3 trilogies. I don't think Rogue One had, well, actually, no. Rogue One. So it's 10. That's 10 there because Darth Vader was in that movie. So that's 10 there. Skywalker. I mean, Solo. Did Solo reference? That's another one that I've only watched once. I think I watched 1.5 times. I don't recall a reference to the Skywalker saga, but it's based in that time frame. Of course, it's Han Solo. But yeah, we'll settle with 10. We've seen 10 movies with the Skywalker saga and countless other Disney Plus shows that revolves around the Skywalker saga. This is a galaxy. We're in a universe. There are many stories to be told. Many different stories to be told. We do not have to settle on Anakin, Luke, Padme, Rey, Kylo Ren. Let's go. Leia, let's move on. There are others. That's why I enjoyed Skeleton Crew so much. Skeleton Crew was a fun adventure story set in the Star Wars universe. Yes, it had a lifesaver in it, but it wasn't the main plot point of the show. It only showed up for maybe 2 episodes, and that was it. And that was that. We moved on. It was telling a different story. I don't need to worry about the Metachlorians. R2D2 got a message for Leia, and C3PO running around and all that. Come on. But that's what with whoever takes over, it needs to go in a different direction, in a new direction. Pay honor, pay homage to what got us here. That's fine, but we don't need to go back. I heard rumors that they were thinking about recasting Luke, recasting Leia, and starting over, kind of a reboot of some sorts. No, what for? There are so many stories you could tell without having to include these characters. It's mind-boggling to me. That's why The Mandalorian, when it first came on, that first season, even the second season, was so great. But what did they have to do? They included Luke Skywalker in it, and that's where it kind of went, oh my God, really? It was it was a letdown for me because I was enjoying a new character. We're on a new adventure and a new story being told. It's fun. It's fun that way to discover, and that's how it was when we were kids. We need to get back to that. When we were kids and we watched these films, we were learning and discovering this new world, this new galaxy, this new universe. And now we're just stuck in neutral and we're telling the same story over and over and over again. Like I said a little while ago, uh, The Force Awakens was basically carbon copy of A New Hope. We're telling the exact same story. Let's try something new. So I hope whoever it is, and I'm hoping it's somebody new. Dave Filoni, he's already, at one time, yes, he was the heir apparent. Before Disney purchased Lucasfilms, he was the heir apparent. He was the right hand man of George Lucas. That's who gave us Clone Wars. That's who gave us Ahsoka. That's who gave us all of these kind of a new generation Star Wars characters that we know and love now. The Mandalorian, etc. So, yeah, I guess theoretically he would probably be the front runner, but I don't think we're going to get anything new from him because when you watch these new Disney Plus shows that he's involved with, aka Ahsoka, it's how can I describe it? It's an inside baseball type show. That's why it didn't really connect with me as much as I enjoyed the Clone Wars. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I watched every single episode of Clone Wars. I watched the majority of them. I enjoyed it. But when Clone Wars came out, I was I was older. I was older. I had responsibilities. And I couldn't sit down in front of the TV like I wanted to back then. So I wasn't able to catch up on all those shows. And so a lot of stuff kind of goes over my head when I'm watching it. Now, that's no fault of Dave Filoni and Lucasfilm or Disney. for me not knowing what's going on. But you have to keep in mind there are people who don't know what's going on, and I know the Cliff Notes version of what's going on, with some of these characters, but some of the other characters, I don't know who that is. And I know they're supposed to be a big deal. So after the show, I got to do homework, you know, and I don't want to watch a show and have to do homework after watching the show. Oh, that's who that is. I just want to watch it and like, oh man, that's such and such, it's that's just something with me. Now, if you're like me, you feel my pain. If not, you're like, man, stop being a baby and enjoy the show. Okay. But that's my knock with Dave Filoni. He really focuses on the characters that he enjoys, he loves, or he created, and not really. What's the word I'm thinking of here? I can't think today. Um, he's not really trying to draw new viewership. I guess that's the plain version I can say. Jon Favreau, love Jon Favreau, but I don't see him as the head of a studio like this. I don't see him spearhead. He's more of a creator. He's like the James Gunn type. If he was going to do it on the creative side, like James Gunn is the creative side of DC Studios and Peter Safran is the executive, that's how those two run DC Studios. Now, the jury's still out if they're doing it well. We haven't seen a film from that studio yet. We got a couple of more months to wait. But yeah, if it was some type of role like that for Jon Favreau, I might be on board. But I'm more to the unknown side, because let's not forget, who knew who Kevin Feige was before Marvel began their cinematic universe? Nobody knew who Kevin Feige was, but he was unknown. He worked his way up through the system, and next thing you know, boom, bam, bing, we have 35 films in the franchise thanks to him, and countless other TV shows on Disney Plus. So, I would choose somebody unknown, but that's my pick. But let's go over Kathleen Kennedy's tenure, or should I say filmography, as the president of Lucasfilms, beginning with Star Wars: The Force Awakens, which came out in 2015. In 2016, you had Rogue One, a Star Wars story. 2017, Star Wars: The Last Jedi. 2018, Solo, a Star Wars story. 2019, Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. You have Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which came out in 2023. And next year, she will still be an executive producer on The Mandalorian and Grogu. Out of those 6 films, The Mandalorian Grogu had came out yet. So out of the 6 films that have been released under Lucasfilms as her as the president, I would say maybe 2 of them I would say were decent, and that is The Force Awakens and Rogue One. Rogue One, I would argue, is the better of all of them. I loved Rogue One. Rogue One was so gritty, so grounded, yet Star Warsy. It was a perfect mix, and it is probably one of the most underrated Star Wars films, because I don't hear nobody talk about it. They'll talk about the prequels, they'll talk about the sequel trilogy, they'll talk about the originals, but never bring up Rogue One. Rogue One was excellent. I've mentioned countless times about The Force Awakens throughout this episode, but yeah, those are the 2 where I would say, okay, we were good. And unfortunately, those were the first 2 in her tenure. After that, the bottom fell out. You had The Last Jedi, Solo, Rise of Skywalker, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Those divisive, calling them divisive would be a pleasure. It's a pleasure, but those movies were awful. And if you call them anything less than that, I wouldn't argue. Those movies were awful. I can't believe they got made, to be honest with you. But it is what it is. On the Disney Plus side of things, you had The Mandalorian, the Book of Boba Fett, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Andor, Willow, Ahsoka, The Acolyte, and Skeleton Crew. Once again, out of those 8 shows, 3 of them I would consider watchable. Only 3. And that is The Mandalorian, Andor, and Skeleton Crew. All the rest, I didn't even finish Willow. And I loved that movie growing up. I loved Willow when growing up, that which was directed by Ron Howard, nonetheless. But I loved that movie when I was younger. The Book of Boba Fett was such a letdown. Obi-Wan Kenobi, like I said, it isn't great, but it isn't horrible either. It's just in this weird limbo of of a television show. The Acolyte is so disappointing, as well as Ahsoka, but Mandalorian, awesome. You know, it's so awesome it's getting its own movie, so that tells all you need to know. Andor is just an extension of Rogue One. You heard me glowing about Rogue One, so Andor just continued on in that faction, and season 2 look like it's going to be amazing. I can't wait till April, I believe it comes out on Disney Plus. And Skeleton Crew, very underrated. I wished more people would have watched that show, gave it a chance, because I'm telling you, it is a really, really good show. But like I said, she had a lot more misses than hits under her belt. Whether it is true or not that she's walking away, stepping down, retiring, I think it is time to look for, it is time. I ain't saying fire the woman, but let her bow out gracefully, because she's done marvelous work throughout her career. Like I said, we can go all the way back to 1984. She executive produced Gremlins, The Goonies, Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, actually all of the Back to the Future films. She produced the Jurassic Park films, the Jurassic Park, not Jurassic World, the Jurassic Park films, Schindler's List, which she won an Oscar for. I mean, she has done excellent job throughout her career. These are films that I absolutely adore. Not only when I was younger, but I still adore them to this day. But when it comes to Star Wars, oh boy. Oh boy. But it is what it is. I digress. It's just a waiting game now. I'm more interested now to see who's gonna be taking her spot and who's gonna make that call. Will she be able to pick her successor, or will it be Bob Iger, who is over Disney, or somebody else? Who's gonna make that choice? Because let's be real, that's gonna tell everything you need to know. If she's allowed to pick her successor, she is truly stepping down. If she's not allowed to pick her successor, she's being forced out. I'm not trying to be mean, but that's just how it works. That's what it is. And so I hope that it's a situation where she's allowed to bow out gracefully. That'll be my hope and prayer for the young lady. But that's just one man's opinion. I would love to know yours. What do you think about Kathleen Kennedy stepping down at the end of the year as the president of Lucasfilm? Are you happy as a Star Wars fan? Are you happy that we're getting this change, or did you enjoy the films and the TV shows that Kathleen Kennedy brought? Let's be honest here as well. This is another point I wanted to bring up before I close out. Look at all the content she put out in the last, how long has it been? 10 years? Yeah, it's been 10 years. 10 years, since Force Awakens, she has put out a lot of Star Wars content, whether it's in the theater or on Disney Plus. That's a lot. And so I can't get too mad. Yeah, I wasn't expecting everyone to knock it out the park. There isn't a franchise alive that has knocked it out of the park every single go around. Um, I mentioned the Jurassic Park series. That not all of them hit. Jurassic Park 3 wasn't all that good. Jurassic World wasn't all that good. You got to go back maybe to Lethal Weapon, but a lot of people don't like Lethal Weapon 4. I didn't mind it, but it wasn't up there with the others. Die Hard. Die Hard took a nosedive. Uh, a lot of franchises don't knock them out the park each and every time. It just so happened that Star Wars, they struck out a lot. They had a lot of strikeouts in the last 10 years. Uh, but I still give her an A for effort and for trying to give us something new. At one point, we were getting a new movie every year, and I think that was the mission statement. That was the plan going forward, to give a new Star Wars movie every year. It was the law of diminishing returns that put a kibosh on that. But anywho's, I want to know your thoughts about the Kathleen Kennedy departure. Do you like it? Do you love it? Or do you not care? You could email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube, ladies and gentlemen. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to movie goodness here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me as we discuss Kathleen Kennedy's impending retirement as president of Lucasfilms. Is this a DEI 86? And I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot of it going around. I mean, maybe Trump put the kibosh on it. I anything's possible these days. But in any event, I want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, may the force be with you.